Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Project podcast. I am your host, Corey Dion Lewis. I have a great guest with me today. I have the president and chief science officer at the American Council on Exercise, or some of us know it as ACE. I have Dr. Cedric Bryant here. Cedric, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me as a guest.
Yeah. So, before we get into the topic at hand, how about if you can just tell us a little bit more about yourself and really what gets you up in the morning?
Well, I'll tell you, what gets me up in the morning is really our organizational mission, which is to get people moving. And I think because of our name being the American Council on Exercise, I think people don't fully understand what we mean by that mission. And really what we're talking about is getting people moving toward adopting and maintaining healthier lifestyles. And if the last 2 years plus haven't shown us anything, is the importance of leading and living a healthy lifestyle, with physical activity being a significant component of that healthy lifestyle.
Right. And I like how you said, adopting a healthier lifestyle and movement being a part of that. And with what we're talking about today, that being so important, especially in our underserved communities and these populations where exercise may be the cheapest and the easiest thing to do and depending on where you're at in the country, and getting these people, active. So my first question to you is there a place we can start improving inactivity in these underserved populations to have more of a population health impact?
Sure. And I kind of go back to early in my career in terms of when I was involved either directly or peripherally with some studies where there were exercise interventions that were targeted to such communities. And it was always a frustration of mine that you would go in, you do these studies, you'd provide this service, if you will, through the intervention, and you'd get magnificent results. But then once the study concluded, people were left to their own devices to continue. And that's why when I talk about the ACE mission of getting people moving, it isn't just to get people to start, it's to get them to stick. That idea of that maintenance phase to the journey. And so it really has been a personal frustration of mine that many research groups will go in and help these populations to get their studies completed. But in terms of thinking about the sustainability of the impact, that is oftentimes an afterthought and not even a thought. And so one of the things that I also found is that making sure that you identify some of those community leaders and advocates within the space, because they already have established trust with the community members. And what I found, that is vital to forming any meaningful relationship. If you can't establish that trust foundation, it's difficult to really have an effective relationship, particularly when you're asking people to make changes which aren't that easy to make. And so I think it really starts by identifying who some of the community advocates are and giving them the tools and resources to be able to effectuate change within their communities. And there are a couple of great examples of some organizations that we work with. One is a little known group called 3 Winds, which is up in the Northridge area of California, where it's a college professor at Cal State Northridge by the name of Dr. Stephen Loy, where he had this great idea of trying to provide his kinesiology students with practical real-world experience that goes with their academic training and learning, because many of these students will learn all of the exercise science. They can tell you about energy metabolism, all these things, but when it comes to working with real people and helping them change their lives, they get little or no experience or training in that regard. So his idea behind 3 Wins is that his students would win by getting this hands-on experience and going into this largely underserved Hispanic community. that the community members would win by getting this training and supervision with physical activity by the students, and the community at large would win because there was a park that was in really kind of disrepair. And by initiating this program, they were able to revitalize the park. They were able to offer free supervised exercise training classes for individuals at multiple levels. Think of kind of beginner,
Right.
kind of intermediate and advanced. And they're there together, as a community, exercising 3 days a week. The park got cleaned up. These people, I tell you, every time I go up there to observe what's happening, I feel very gratified, because that's really a way in which we can truly impact individuals' lives. And that's the reason why an organization like ACE exists, is to do public benefit. And so we sponsored that program in terms of with research dollars as well as scholarship dollars, so that their kinesiology students could get the ACE certification, so they could lead those exercises with a bit more kind of training and experience. And so that's one great example where they've been able to get to 10 locations now, and they're probably affecting about 1,200 or so lives. And
Wow.
so what we'd like to be able to do is to be able to replicate that in other communities in other areas. Another example is a group called Sports Backers, which is based in Richmond, Virginia. And several years ago, Richmond, Virginia, they do those surveys of the most fit and the least fit communities.
Mm-hmm.
They were among one of the least fit. And so their community leaders said, hey, we got to change this. And so they started this program called Sports Backers, where again, they work within the community to provide physical activity, some basic nutrition counseling and education to the community. And we've been supporting them again with the education and training of the folks who deliver this within their communities. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities, rather than trying to create something from scratch as an organization like ACE, to say, okay, we've got this program, we're going to come descend on this community and show them all the great things we can do for them. We believe a better model is going in and partnering with those in the community who already have a passion for trying to change the health profile within those communities, and see how we can come alongside and support them.
Right. And it sounds like not only are you improving the health of these people, you're really changing the culture of some of these communities. I'm assuming the culture in these communities was not a active first, health first community.
Exactly. And unfortunately, as you know, Corey, it's, sometimes, the zip code in which we are born or live can have a pretty profound impact on
Absolutely.
the type of lifestyle we can lead. And so it's really coming in and trying to disrupt that.
Yeah. In the more and more, the deeper I get into social determinants and just, community health in general, that the collaboration you were talking about is the anchor of the health improvement that I'm mm-hmm. noticing. And so I totally agree with you with that is getting involved with the people who are on the front lines. And
exactly.
Who got their ear to the street and know what's going on, because they can really bring in that change, that cultural change of health.
Yeah. And I also think it's somewhat mildly arrogant to think that you as an outsider who really doesn't understand the unique challenges that the community faces can come in with the solution.
Yeah, that's very true. So, when it comes to social determinants, like I was just talking about, we talk a lot about transportation, where people live. Do you feel, or what are your thoughts on physical activity being a part of that conversation? Is physical activity, should it be more of an important part of the social determinants of health when we talk about it?
Yes, I think it should. And I am encouraged that I think there is becoming increasing awareness through some of the leading organizations that is in fact the case, like in what is it, Healthy People 2030.
Yeah.
They have included access to nutritious foods and physical activity opportunities as being an example of one of those social determinants of health that we really haven't done a great job of helping to address. And so I think we are starting to see some small wins. The other thing is that I think it's like 2015, 2016, the World Health Organization each year, they go about and they identify these best buys, and they identify physical activity as kind of a best buy in that it confers a great deal of benefit with little or no risk. And so, getting that type of recognition and support, I think the real challenge is that while there's scores and scores of data that indicate that physical activity can profoundly impact health and non-communicable diseases and things like hypertension, diabetes, certain types of cancer, it's still difficult to get people to engage. And that's really where I see a positive shift. And I think a lot of organizations are starting to focus more on kind of lifestyle behavior change and kind of behavioral psychology to try to help individuals kind of make these small, consistent steps toward moving from an inactive lifestyle to a more active lifestyle.
Yeah, it's with all the information we have, it's not like the people that we see or we provide service for, they know that exercise is important. It just ain't trying to do it. How do we change that behavior? Like what are those first steps? I know Ace, the things you guys are doing with the partnerships and the physical activity models you were just talking about, but how do we get people to think of exercise as not a chore, but just as a part of their daily life and what they do and to improve their health?
Well, there are a couple of thoughts that I have. And one, you're spot on, because if we were to ask 10 individuals, do you think exercise is important and beneficial and so forth, I would be surprised if we didn't get all 10 saying yes.
Yeah.
But if we ask those same 10 individuals, do you exercise regularly? Are you regularly physically active? We'd probably get about 2 who would say yes. Right. And so what's the disconnect between knowing that it's good for you and beneficial and doing it? And it really is, it is rooted in kind of behavioral psychology and behavior change, the science of behavior change and so forth. And I think the way you started this podcast with me, where you asked me, what's my why? Mm-hmm. I think we've got to take more time in trying to understand people's why that relates to physical activity. And I think too often we've been so singularly focused on either getting more fit in terms of, having a better body and being stronger, being able to run faster, as opposed to how can it positively impact my lifestyle and allow me to do those things that I want to and I need to do in life. And that takes establishing a relationship. That takes asking questions, but more importantly, being a good active listener. Because one of the things we try to teach our professionals is that don't come in there trying to be the expert and trying to wow people with your knowledge and expertise, but really come in here to try to be that kind of trusted guide that people can look to help them in this often difficult journey for most people. And we kind of like to use the analogy of try to shift from wrestling with your clients to try to get them to do what they should and ought to do, and that is best for them, mm-hmm. and shift that to coming and becoming a dance partner with your client, where you are understanding them so that you guys can work collaboratively to move them gradually towards this sustainable active lifestyle. And I think initially shift the focus from these kind of performance related outcomes and goals and shift it just to process goals. Just if they can, it's just like in nutrition that they will tell people, don't try to radically change your diet, maybe focus on one thing. if you're a big soda drinker, maybe try to replace that with water. The same thing with activity. If you're a person who hasn't done much, just try to find some little activity snacks that you can do. Just try to introduce a little bit more movement in your day, and kind of start there and build on that. And I think too often we try to push people from 0 to 60 in terms of their activity status much too quickly.
Yeah, you know what I've also noticed, Cedric, and I love your thoughts on this, especially with the population that I serve and the community that I serve. It's this all or nothing mentality. So if I were to tell someone, hey man, just start with, the research says that, a 20-minute walk 3 days a week is good or whatever. Oh, they're like, a walk? Like how's walking going to improve my health? I need to be in the gym 7 days a week, lifting all the weights. And they can't separate their mind from a simple walk being great exercise from what they see on social media or anything like that.
Well, and it is a challenge because between social media, between even what the industry does and promotes, things like we always hold up the most fit as kind of the model and the example. And really, while there's the thought that that's aspirational for folks, but it's so unattainable that I think what it does is it causes folks to almost have a defeatist attitude. Is like, I can't do that. I won't get there. And so why even try? And that's why I think it's so important to really kind of identify some small wins and get people to focus on some other things in terms of if they just move a little bit more, how does their sleep improve? Are they better able to handle the many stresses in life that we all face? Do they have, a better outlook when they come home and they're interacting with their significant others and family members? Really try to kind of focus on other wins as opposed to, did you lose 10 pounds or did you gain a quarter of an inch on your biceps? Because at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't matter as much as kind of changing your approach and your view to kind of adopting that healthy lifestyle. And an example too is that the American Diabetes Association, in their most recent guidelines, it's so important for an individual impacted with diabetes to disrupt periods of physical inactivity and simply get up and move if you're watching television during the commercial breaks.
Yeah.
As little as 2-minute little movement bouts can help those individuals with their glycemic control. And so helping people to realize that there is a lot to be gained from doing little bouts of activity, and it doesn't have to be this 45-minute workout, because end of the day, it's like loose change in your pocket. It all adds up to real money. It may not be as big as a 20, but you add up those quarters and all of a sudden you have a 20.
Yeah, right. Yeah, $5 is better than nothing.
Exactly. Right.
Right. So, when we spoke before, Cedric, we were talking about, the some of the programs within our communities to improve exercise. And what stood out to me, my first thought was, what about those people who don't have access to a gym membership or to a safe place, but they also have all 4 seasons. So maybe they can't go out for a walk in the winter, which it's a real thing. I mean, there are times in here in the Midwest, it gets cold. Just thinking about going outside is you get a chill. So, what can we do to motivate those people to improve the physical activity of those given that situation?
For those individuals, I would encourage them to look for every opportunity to move, and because of the inclement weather, that may not be outdoors. The other thing that we need to help make it easier for people to be aware of is that there are a lot of free resources that are available online, because I think just about everyone has a smartphone these days. And so you can access a lot of good quality content. For example, on our website, we offer a lot of free content in terms of different exercises they can try, different games they can play with their kids, with their families. And there are a lot of organizations that offer such activity opportunities.
Yeah, that's great. So if you were speaking to one person right now, and they were wanting to, they're saying, Cedric, I want to get healthier. I want to exercise more. What's that one step they can take to improve their health, for the better?
I would say to start small. Just look for any and every opportunity to move. And there, a good friend of mine has a saying that I love, and he says, ordinary things done daily eventually lead to extraordinary results. And this is an individual who was significantly impacted by overweight and obesity. In fact, he was so large and so deconditioned that when he started his exercise program, guess how long his exercise bouts were?
And how was that? What, 5 minutes?
30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
and he has a thing where he says 30 seconds to victory. And he just was consistent, built upon that. And now he's a person who's exercising well beyond the recommended guidelines. Did it take him a while? Absolutely. But just that consistent commitment to doing a little bit more movement each day and really experimenting and trying different movements to find out things that you enjoy is I think the best advice I could give anyone.
Right. And that's a good word, because I feel like for a lot of people, it's hard to, when you're on the journey, it's hard to see the finish line. It's hard to see where you're going, especially when maybe you're suffering from, multiple chronic diseases. And
that's right.
You needed to start a year ago, and now you're trying to start. You're like, man, I need to get this going. I can see it being hard for someone to think, man, 30 seconds, that's not going to get me where I need to go.
Right. That's nothing. Yeah.
Right. And next thing you know, you're doing great things. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Cedric, thank you so much for your time today on the podcast. I really, truly appreciated it. Anybody listening that wanted to learn more about you, learn more about ACE and what you guys are doing over there, where can they find you?
They can go to our website, acefitness.org, acefitness, all one word, .org, is where they can find. And also, they can find a lot of great information and resources to help them on their physical activity journeys.
Awesome. Well, again, Cedric, thank you so much for your time. And everyone, thank you for listening. I'll holler at you next time.
And Corey, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I just want to give a shout out to you. I appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm doing my part in trying to help, Awesome, guys. Hey, thank you so much. I'll holler at you next time.